I'm sorry, my dear. Did I frighten you?
And here we have another Disney live-action remake, though I'll admit I was a little bit more optimistic going into this one. The 1937 Snow White film is historically important, there's no argument about that, but that film was important because of the breakthroughs Walt Disney had in animation, not because of anything it did with its story. The original Snow White has virtually no personality, her prince doesn't even get a name, and while the evil queen was memorable, she was still the rough draft for what we now know as the classic Disney villain archetype. Which is why, if you're going to remake it, you can't just rely on the original and copy it shot for shot. But while Snow White 2025 isn't as lazy as some of the other recent live-action remakes, it's also still not very good. Not for any of the reasons the online grifters have been trying to push for the last year or so, but more because it just wound up being really boring. Most of the story beats from the original are still here. Dead parents, evil queen, fairest of them all, eating the apple, true love's kiss, happily ever after, it's all here. And some of what they've added in actually improved things. Snow White is much more proactive as a character, they swapped out the nameless prince for a Robin Hood type figure, and there's an actual climax this time. But a lot of the new additions also weigh the movie down. There was a lot of scuttlebutt online during production when it seemed like the 7 dwarves wouldn't be in this version, and that they'd be replaced by this band of Ren Fair players. It turns out we got both groups, only now the dwarves are CGI monstrosities plucked from the uncanny valley, and as for the other guys, I think only 3 got named on screen and only 1 gets a personality by virtue of being the love interest. I have no idea if the dwarves got put back in after the initial backlash, but between most of the new characters not really being characters, and the tonal whiplash whenever it moves away from scenes that were recreating the animated film, I wouldn't be shocked if that gets confirmed down the road. Rachel Zegler does the best with what she's given and is clearly the best singer in the cast, and she has decent chemistry with Andrew Burnap, even though the film can't quite hide him being significantly older than her. But then there's Gal Gadot as the evil queen. I think at some point we need to have an honest conversation about whether she's a good actress or is just good at playing one very specific role, because the evidence is starting to pile up for that second argument. She certainly looks the part, but her delivery is all over the place. Her big musical number is kind of flat, and she can't quite pin down being menacing even when she's disguised as the old hag. In the few days since the movie's release, I've honestly seen more articles online recapping the many controversies, both real and fake, surrounding Snow White than actual reviews, and partially because there's just not that much to talk about. There's a lot of new characters, only a few are worth mentioning. A lot of new songs, none of which are that memorable. And even if they had gone an alternate route with casting the evil queen, there's just such a lack of momentum with this thing that I was honestly struggling fighting off the urge to take a nap. I'm not saying this needed to go the live-action fantasy route, Lord knows we've seen that already. But what we have here is lifeless and unmemorable. Maybe Stitch will be a better time. But until then, you guys can skip this one, and I'll see you guys next time.